Hello, everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. Welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast, as part of a research and presentation series, this audio podcast as part of a Storm Labostics production. In today's audio podcast, and as part of this series or this edition, looking at looking at an overview in regard to coping in young people with chronic kidney disease and CKD, and as part of peer-reviewed and published works from around 2015 and 16. And in this in a previous audio podcast, listeners and viewers, you may have had a chance to look at an overview in context of a literature review looking at coping in young people with CKD or chronic kidney disease. And this work looks at a sort of peer-reviewed and published works as part of sort of an adaptive sort of perspective on original and peer-reviewed published works. And this audio podcast, as part of this audio podcast, ZtormLabostix Collaborative, there is an overview, a sort of a look at this works in regard to where there will be an introduction, a look at the literature, a look at sort of the aims, aims and objectives, a theoretical framework, some a look at sort of the methodology, the methodology implemented, a look at sort of the analysis, and a look at sort of the findings and the themes derived. I look at a sort of a discussion, implications for practice, and look at a conclusion, and there will be a reference or a citation that listeners and viewers are welcome to check to get into for the full works. So a bit of introduction to begin with. So, chronic kidney disease in young people impacts generally on various aspects, including education, on personal development, and across psychosocial aspects, and continue and where the implications can continue into from from sort of from young age into adult life, and this can reduce probability of leading can reduce probability in young people who are diagnosed with varying forms of CKD, chronic kidney disease, where there can be a reduced probability of leading a successful life. And so clinical advances allow young people to allow young people or have allowed young people now to to carry out or conduct modified forms of kidney replacement therapy or KRT for example, in hospital environs to the home, in and to the home environment, including traditional forms of KRT, traditional and sort of the sort of less invasive forms of KRT being peritoneal dialysis or PD, and including hemodialysis and sort of the subdivision of hemodialysis being nocturnal hemodialysis, nocturnal hemodialysis as well. So in case of CKD stages 4 or 5, KRT often necessitates the development of specific coping skills. Hemodialysis often challenges young people's coping strategies and also requires continual appraisal of these strategies in times of duress. So coping with CKD also means living with the risk of a transplant rejection, where if and where in young people who are transplanted, there is the risk of where there can be transplant rejection and or the clinical implications or complications. So in around some of the literature, or sort of specifics around the literature, young people with illnesses and healthy can be affected from varying factors that prompt risk to poor well-being. One investigation has looked to understand the long-term the psychological implications of chronic illness or illnesses in pediatrics and young people. The range of psychosocial concerns of young people with CKD and families have also been evidenced or have also been documented. Research has also informed an association between coping strategies with the suppression of negative emotions and sort of the effect of and sort of the effects around self management. Early approach to care for young people suffering with chronic illnesses and and nurture adaptive and nurture adaptive coping skills has advantages. Evidence informs young people with CKD seek out health information about illness or illnesses to acquire self care skills. Coping strategies at the coping strategy coping strategies at the same time that have been documented have also including confrontational coping and self-reliance. Um, some evidence from the Department of Health sort of retrospectively has informed it is also important to emphasize that many of the real issues affecting young people with kidney disease go beyond the scope of clinical care, but this does not mean they are necessarily beyond the scope of care plans. So in around the aims and objectives. So the objective of this qualitative investigation was to identify coping strategies in two cohorts of young people aged between 12 and 18 years. In group one, the young people had CKD stage 4 to 5, CKD stage 4 and 5, and in a second cohort or group, young people were deemed healthy. That is to say, they whilst the young people had other challenges. For example, they were deemed healthy in context of where they were not diagnosed or did not have or were not diagnosed with a form of chronic kidney disease or of chronic kidney disease. And so the main sort of research question, if you like, was what coping strategies do young people adapt to enable them to cope? So in around the theoretical framework, the theoretical basis for the investigation involved a phenomenological approach where the researchers or investigators essentially looked to understand coping strategies in young people and to begin from a perspective free from hypotheses or preconceptions. Phenomenological methodologies are particularly effective to help bring forth the experiences and real perspectives from individuals and thus challenging assumptions. phenomenological studies or investigations relating to young people with CKD and other conditions have have also been carried out. Using an interpretive dimension to phenomenological research allows investigators or investigating team to inform, to support, or challenge policy and action. And there has been there have been some works and evidence and sort of published data going back as far as the 1970s in around aspects in aspects of this in line to the theoretical around the theoretical framework. So now, sort of looking at the methodology. So the research collected or sought to collect or looked to collect qualitative data from two participant cohorts or groups during semi-structured interviews using a topic guide. Young people with CKD in group one or cohort one were identified by a pediatric nephrology clinical nurse, who later acted as a point of contact for participants. And before participants attending appointments or clinical or appointments, for example, parents and guardians were contacted and provided with an introductory letter, information sheet, and consent form permission for dependents to participate. Young, healthy people in cohort two or group two who had received received written parental consent were recruited by a youth club by and through a youth club over a 1 month duration, and then contacted to confirm contacted to confirm confirm sort of to confirm the intention to participate. All participants were informed of the purpose of the investigation and that the interview data would be anonymized. An interview guide to structure the theoretical foundation was developed further, having reviewed some of the articles or published works published in around having reviewed some of the published works published works in around similar again sort of similar 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 theme of works. Now looking at sort of analysis the analysis of this works. So the investigators opted to use a thematic analysis to examine and investigate data because of its flexibility. Qualitative analytic methodologies can be roughly divided into two sections. So with the first, there are those that are tied to or stemming from a particular theoretical or epistemological position. And for some of these, such as conversational analysis and interpretive phenomenological analysis, there is yet relatively limited variability in how the methodology is applied within that framework. In essence, there are different indicators for the methodology which support a broad theoretical framework. And second, there are methodologies that are essentially independent of theory and epistemology, and can be applied through a range of theoretical and epistemological approaches. Although often implicitly framed as a realist experimental methodology, thematic analysis thematic analysis is firmly in the second section and is compatible with essentialist and constructionist paradigms across healthcare research. So now looking at sort of the looking at thematic analysis and sort of the sort of the phases in thematic analysis as highlighted as as sort of as sort of that's sort of highlighted in this table one. And so there are in amongst the phases there are six main phases. There is phase one, for example, becoming familiar with the insights. Phase two looks at generating initial ciphered data. Looking at phase three, looking at identifying themes and relating to subject entity. Theme four are investigating subject areas carefully, and phase five, sorry, placing subject areas in an ordered manner and relevant to importance, and then say phase six, composing an account. And each phase here, you can see, listeners and viewers, there is a description of process, or description of processes, and this the table one here was adapted from works by from works in works and from Braun and Clark, from sort of from in around 2006. So now looking at sort of the findings and sort of the themes derived. So in here, table two here highlights the theme derived and the findings. And in altogether through this works, there were 11 different themes derived, and in this table, table two, I look at some of the themes, and listeners and viewers, I won't go into the reading of the reading of the anonymized data, but you are welcome to sort of pause on any devices, on your devices, or on your social media to actually go through some of the readings around the anonymized data under each theme, where participants have commented under these where participants involved had commented, and where data had been aligned to these different themes. So there was a theme around anticipating a challenging scenario, a theme around close relationships, a theme around coping strategies, a theme around resilience, a theme around exercise or physical activity. There was a theme around decision making. And table three, sort of continuing on, has a theme around pastimes, theme around peer pressure, a theme around relaxation and relief, a theme around stress triggers, and a theme around worst case scenario. So now looking at and now looking at sort of the discussion, a discussion as part of this sort of works. So this investigation identified that young people with CKD, chronic kidney disease, CKD and CKD stages 4 and 5, were able to implement were able to and are able to implement varying coping strategies, ranging from problem focused and emotion focused coping to more passive strategies such as avoidance strategies. Both cohorts adapted anticipation, developing resilience, and communication as counteractive approaches where possible. Interactions with peers perhaps allowed young people to implement problem focused coping, which involves strategies that attempt to ease or eradicate challenging circumstances through balancing advantages and disadvantages. And although young people from cohort two or group two had the youth club as a place to relax and enjoy activities, young people from the cohort one had a compar had 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 also had it had also been identified that young people from cohort one also had comparable and a variety of pastimes. Being involved in activities can lead to positive coping, enhancing the ability to cope, and this have also been highlighted in various investigations looking at various investigations surrounding and looking at coping. So in regard to as part of implications for practice, so the findings can allow healthcare professionals and academics in pediatric nephrology to develop a guideline to complement clinical practice. Future investigations on coping should focus on the perceptions of coping from parents and guardians. So now looking at sort of the sort of conclusions. So for young people with CKD, coping strategies can be impaired by daily living activities. This in turn can impair the enjoyment of friendships, contentment with con- enjoyment of friendships, contentment, and performance in school or work. If young people with CKD have support to adapt more positive coping strategies, this may enable a smoother transition from pediatric renal care to adult renal services, where they are required to become more autonomous. Prospective investigations should thus adapt a similar qualitative methodology approach, but look for opportunities to encourage greater participation from this population. Here on this as part of this sort of overview, this slide this this screen should give a gives a citation or a reference to where the full publication of peer-reviewed works can be identified with the author with the authors or authors and co-authors involved. That draws this audio podcast to a close. This audio podcast is part of our research and presentation series. This audio podcast is part of a ZtormLabostix production. Thank you.